Hello, everybody. How are you guys? I hope you guys are good. Hope you're having a great day. Okay, so first of all, I want to thank you guys so much for being here. We are here to talk about Dane Paulsen, missing 2-year-old out of Oregon. Okay, I have on with me today Scott Snyder, former detective. I've had him on before on this channel, so please welcome him. I'll bring him up.
Hey, Christy. Nice to be here.
Hello.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming. Thank you for taking your time out of your day and
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thanks for
coming to
having me.
talk to us about this.
You bet.
Okay, so now for those of you that don't know or haven't followed the case, Dane Paulsen is a 2-year-old out of Oregon. He vanished from his family's front yard while playing in broad daylight on Saturday morning, prompting a massive search. He disappeared just before 4:30 p.m. while playing out of sight of his parents in the front yard of their home north of Silletts, a small city near the Silletts River. The Lincoln County Sheriff's Office said in a news release on Sunday. So since then, there's been massive searches going on. They're searching the ground, they're searching the water, they're using all different kinds of search tools. And you're from Oregon.
I am. I'm from about 2 hours from that area. Actually, I live on the Oregon coast, about 2 hours away.
Yep. Okay. So I thought I'd bring Scott on today and we could talk a little bit. I know he's been following this, he's been covering it over on X. So for those of you that don't know, that you can follow him over on X at what's your handle?
It's Snyder, SNYDER 860.
Okay. So he's got articles that he's put out over there. So definitely go and check that out.
Thank you.
So at first they were looking for a gold car that for whatever reason, what made them suspicious of this car?
So essentially, it was reported that there was a gold vehicle with a man there on the bridge. And if you look at aerial photos, I did put some aerial photos out too on X. The bridge goes right across the river and borders up right next to the property where Dane went missing, right next to the home. So this vehicle, this gold vehicle, was spotted on the bridge, and people just thought it looked out of place, and they'd not seen this guy here before. They'd not seen the vehicle. They thought it was unusual.
Okay.
So I believe it was via Facebook. Someone on Facebook put out some information on who they thought this person might be. Long story short, the sheriff's office ended up speaking to this individual, and they determined after speaking with him that according to them, he has nothing to do with the case whatsoever. And so he's been eliminated at this point.
Right.
Yeah.
And when I first heard about this, I hadn't seen the property. So when I first heard about it, I just heard missing, 2-year-old missing, disappeared from his front yard. So my immediate thought was like, like maybe he was taken. But
Yes.
then when I saw the property, it's not like, there's not sidewalks and neighbors. It's pretty much it sits back pretty much on its own.
It does.
So, it makes it a little less likely that it would be an abductor.
I agree. Yeah, like you said, it's pretty remote to itself. Sits all by its lonesome there, and yeah, originally one of the things that I think made people consider the fact that he might have been taken is there were some initial reports that came out, and you may have seen these, Christy, that the scent was lost by the tracking dog midway through the backyard.
Yes.
Which, having been a canine officer myself, as part of my duties, what that tells a canine officer is if a dog suddenly loses scent, oftentimes that's because the person either got in a vehicle and was driven away, or was picked up and carried away, or what have you. So that kind of created some speculation. Now they are coming out and they are saying actually that he was actually last seen near the river's edge, but they're not exactly saying whether that's visual or whether, it's by video camera or whatever.
Right. Like and in the article, it had said that they had found evidence that he was by the water or by the riverbed.
Yes.
So And yeah, that river, I could not, like, that's so close to the house, what, 100 feet away?
It's 100 feet away roughly, and my understanding from actually doing research and looking at the photographs is there's no fence or anything there that prohibits you from getting down by that river.
Right.
There is some brush there, some
Yes.
thick brush, but can you get through that brush? I don't know. I haven't looked at it that close, but
Mhm.
they're speculating that that may be what happened.
Yeah, I had actually pulled up a couple of photos to look closer at them of the bank of the
Hmm.
river. And it does look very, especially for a 2-year-old, it does look very, very hard to get through, to walk through without, taking a stumble, or because
Sure.
it's not smooth sailing down the bank.
Right.
So it
Yeah.
looks very rough. So I kind of wondered, like, had they found evidence? They said they found evidence that he was there, but did they find evidence that he was there alone?
Yeah, and they're not really saying that. We know that he does have a sister. Whether the sister was outside with him and they were playing is really that's stuff they're just not releasing yet.
Hmm.
Yeah, so it's really
And
kind of an unknown.
and for those of you listening, his sister's 8 years old, so
Mhm.
it's not like she's older or anything.
Right.
Um, and they haven't said whether or not he or how he ended up out there alone, right? They haven't touched on that.
I have not heard anything on that at all.
Me either.
Yeah, they're being pretty tight-lipped on that so far, and understandably so. It's
Right.
still it's been 5 days, but in an investigation of this nature, that's not that long. So yeah,
Right.
they're going to keep things quiet until they know more.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And I know there's a lot of people calling, saying, well, the parents should be get in trouble for neglect, or why wasn't anybody watching him, or something like that. But I do want to say that these parents are punishing themselves for sure. Like, they're definitely going through it, themselves. So they are definitely going to hold themselves accountable and punish themselves, on top of
Absolutely.
everything else.
Absolutely. And from everything I've heard thus far on this, there's no indication of any foul play regarding the parents. It sounds like they're pretty upstanding people. They're business owners in Depot Bay, which is a town nearby, Siletz. So yeah, I agree with you, Christy. I'm sure that they're, on pins and needles and feeling awful about this situation right now.
Yeah. And we don't, at this time, guys, we don't know, whether or not they were outside and they turned around, and the toddler got away. Like, we just don't know the circumstances, because that
Right.
hasn't been released. So
That's correct.
um no, did they say what kind? So they didn't say what kind of evidence they found at the water's edge. So, like, a toy, article of clothing, a scent. They haven't said.
They didn't. All they're saying, and I did check some posts with some other people that I communicate with on X that are following this case closely too, and it's the same situation. All they're saying is that he was last seen by the water, by the river's edge.
Okay.
They're not indicating whether there was scent there or toys or anything. They're just saying he was seen there, and that's kind of where it sits right now.
Okay. Um Now, is there anything you can tell us about the river, like the current, the size? Now, I did ask you too, are there, because I'm not familiar with the area, are there gators or anything like that in that river?
So it's a popular river for fishing. There are no gators that I know of in the river. Alligators are not native to this part of Oregon at all. So if there would be something in there, it would be a transplant somehow.
Right.
There are river snakes and things like that, but they're not extremely large or anything like that. But my understanding of the river is that it's extremely fast flowing.
Right.
I tried to get an indication on the depth of it right now, and like I was telling you backstage earlier, I was reading some of the Coast Guard stuff, and some of it was not making a lot of sense to me in terms of depth. I think it's a relatively deep river, but what the sheriff's office is saying, Lincoln County SO is saying right now that the visibility at this time is about 4 to 5 feet inside the river down to that depth, which is actually pretty good for this time of year. So that's what I know about the river. It is very fast flowing. And you could certainly speculate that, if Dane fell into the river, if that's what happened, and if he didn't get caught up in the river, he could be several miles down that river by now.
Right.
With the
Right.
tide. Yeah.
Which leads me to so depending on the current, the flow, which we know it's moving quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Now, will the police track the current and the distance, and will they set up searches and things down there where he could possibly be at this time?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And they're doing that now. The latest information that I found this morning was that they're saying they've covered about 2 miles downstream of the river. They have at least 4 boats, a multitude of divers in the river. They're doing aerial footage with drones and using some other technology as well. They're saying that we're not anywhere near calling this search off, and that they intend to search further down that river, which, I think is very important, because again, if he was not caught up and stuck in the river, he could be a ways downstream.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Now, I had mentioned that there are people, calling for whoever was supposed to be watching him, to being neglectful or whatever. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, as I said earlier, there's no indication from the sheriff's office that there's anything criminal in this case.
Right.
Okay, so then if they were going to look at this case in terms of penalties for the parents, the two things that would come into play, or the main thing that would come into play, would be neglect.
Mm-hmm.
And in Oregon, there is criminal neglect resulting in criminally negligent homicide. And then there's also the manslaughter statute that also can result from that. But manslaughter is more reserved for things like recklessness and that sort of thing.
Right.
I'm not suggesting at all that they're going to pursue any charges against the parents, but I'm saying that the most likely thing, if they decided to go that direction, would probably be something relating to, extreme neglect. Basically just, knowing that the dangers were there, that the river was there, and just failing to watch.
Mm-hmm.
And failing to watch the child properly.
Right.
Dane. Yeah.
And I do want to just say real quick that literally it happened so quickly.
Yes.
Like I was telling Scott backstage that my husband's father had a longtime best friend. They grew up together, known each other forever. Him and his wife, they had a child, and I believe the child was 2 or 3 at the time. And the child was with the wife. They got home from getting groceries. Mm-hmm. The wife carried in the groceries, carried in the load, came back out, and their kid was gone. Couldn't find. They ended up finding the child in the river that was close to the home. Like it only, you can turn your back and they're just gone. Like it happens so quickly.
It happens very quickly. We had a similar instance, which I didn't talk to you about backstage. I just recalled it just now in our family a number of years ago, where there was a family picnic going on, and there was a river, and people were having a good time and assuming everything was okay, and they didn't recognize that one of the kids was missing, and a child fell into the river. And one of the family members went in and brought the child out of the river. And you're right. I mean, and it could be a situation just like that. It happens very, very quickly. No ill intent whatsoever.
Right.
Parents may have just assumed that everything was A-okay, and there you go.
Yeah.
It does happen.
It does. It does.
Christy, I need to shut my door here real quick.
No problem.
My cat just came in and he's trying to get my attention. So let me get him out of here and I'll be right back.
No problem.
Sorry.
Nope, you're good.
Come on, let's go.
And that's the thing. It does happen so quickly in these. I mean, look at Granger Smith. For those of you that don't know, he's a country singer. Him and his kids were all playing outside. And he was watching his daughter do gymnastics, and he turns around and his son had gotten into the gate and gotten into their pool, and the father was right there, but he was, you know what I mean, he was looking at his daughter, and it only takes seconds sometimes, guys. So, you know, the parents could have very well been outside with him. With the way their property is, the parents could have very well been outside with him at the time and just turned away for a minute.
Absolutely.
Happens that quickly.
It does. My heart really goes out to these parents right now
Mine
because
too.
I'm sure that I can't even imagine.
I cannot even imagine. Like
Yeah,
we were saying, it's you have to be so vigilant these days.
you really do.
Um, okay, so I asked you that about the evidence. Now, okay, so I don't know if you know, I don't need specific numbers or not on this, but
Hmm.
let's say for accidental drownings.
Hmm.
Okay. Now, i- is it more often or less often that parents get a charge from something like that?
In order to, I mean, I don't know the percentages on that either, and I probably should have done some research on that. But I mean, with accidental drownings, in order to charge a parent, you have to prove that they were pretty grossly negligent, and that the dangers were there. They knew the dangers were there,
Hmm.
and they did nothing to you know keep the child out of danger of going into the pool or whatever. So you have to prove that it was pretty gross negligence. I would say that with accidental drownings, it's far less that they're
Right.
charged criminally. Again, sometimes neglect may come into play, but even there, you have to show that they pretty much knew that the dangers were there, and they just didn't.
Just ignored it.
They just ignored it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Now real quick, back to the scent dogs, because the dog
Mhm.
did, you know, care follow the scent to halfway through the yard
Right.
and then lost the scent. So what does that like? What does that mean though? Like, why did the scent just disappear?
Yeah, that was the initial reports, was that the canine was tracking. Apparently, there are 6 dogs that they're using right now at the scene. There may be more now, but at the time that I read this article and did this research, there were 6 dogs that were being used. They were saying originally that the dog, whichever dog that was, lost the scent midway through the backyard. Now, I'm a former canine officer myself, and I had a dog for a couple of years, and I've actually had that happen before,
Oh,
where we were tracking a suspect, and all of a sudden my dog Koenig just got completely confused and just stopped tracking.
hmm.
And it was the weirdest thing. And he just kind of started running in circles like he was trying to, grab onto the scent again. I came to find out later that what had happened was the suspect was actually picked up in a vehicle and at
Oh,
that location and was driven away by
gotcha.
someone. So generally, what that can mean with canines when they lose the scent like that is, you can speculate, was the person they were tracking, were they picked up in a vehicle and driven away? Were they picked up and carried away?
Hmm.
Because the scent normally doesn't just disappear like that, especially that early in the investigation. Scent like that lasts quite a while. And it sounds like they were tracking through grass and dirt in the backyard. Scent typically is held down and stays in that kind of terrain for quite a long time. And
Right.
especially with the weather right now, I mean, the scent is probably still present as we speak, because the coolness and the dampness of the weather holds the scent down into that terrain longer than it normally would if it was a hot sunny day, that sort of thing.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, if that's the case, and now they're saying that they know he was at the river's edge, and how they know that again is not clear. But if it's true that the dog did lose the scent, you could speculate that maybe he was moved from one location to another. But again, we don't know that, and they're not
Right.
saying that now.
Right. That's what made, that is what made me ask the question. They say they have evidence of him at the riverbed, but was he alone at the riverbed is the question, because You
Yeah.
know, I mean, we don't know, and they haven't released a lot of information. So, which I
No.
understand, I get it.
Sure.
Um, but it's a really heartbreaking case. I mean, a 2-year-old little boy.
Yeah.
It's so sad.
It really is very sad. And, I mean, we have a couple of cases going on in Oregon like this right now. The other child's been found deceased, but yeah, I mean, we've had our share of it. I mean, it happens. It happens everywhere, sadly. I mean, it's just, yeah, it's
Do
really
we know? Do we know? Did they have cameras on their property?
I have not heard one way or the other on
I
that.
haven't either. So
Mm-mm. Don't know.
I wondered that.
That would certainly be something that would have been checked into by now, but they just haven't said one way or the other.
Right. Right. So, according to Ellie right now,
Mhm.
I mean, they're focusing on the river. So they don't at this point believe that he could have been picked up by someone right?
Right. Well, what they've said is that there's no criminal concern with the parents. Um, I have not heard them say anything else potentially criminal. But what they're doing is, the first thing you do, you have this indication that Dane was seen down by the river, so you investigate that fully
Right.
until you have a reason to move forward in the investigation and look at other potential possibilities like criminal, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Um, if they are finding anything potentially criminal, they're not saying so right now. That's for
Right.
sure.
Right.
And, again, those are things that you kind of keep close to the vest in the investigation until you go further. So, I mean,
Right.
certainly possible, but they're not saying that.
Yeah, because I know. Well, there was no Amber Alert issued because he
Right.
didn't meet certain criteria, right, for an Amber Alert.
Correct. In order to issue a Amber Alert, you have to believe that the child was abducted. That's one of the elements. You have to believe that the child is in danger of physical harm or death. And there's some other factors that come into play as well. And so the abduction piece at the beginning of the investigation didn't fit with that. And so
Mhm.
that's why they didn't issue an Amber Alert. And so, yeah, that's where we sit right now.
Okay, so at first, I know we had already talked about they cleared the car that they thought was suspicious at the time, but
Yes.
eh, but at first, like let's say day one, they didn't have the any evidence that pointed him being at the riverbed, right? So they were running a different angle at the beginning.
They were running a different angle at the beginning because somebody brought forth that information that the car was seen on the bridge.
Okay.
And so, I think, I'm not positive, but I believe that came via Facebook is how
Okay.
that whole thing got started. And like I said, they did investigate that. They located that person, talked to him, and ruled him out.
Yeah.
And to my knowledge, there's been no other indications of any other strange people around the area at the time that Dane went missing. So
And the dog scent that was in the backyard, correct? Not the front yard.
my understanding is it was in the backyard. Yes.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Heading towards the river.
Correct.
Right. Okay. I just wanted to make sure everybody had, that like it wasn't halfway to the road when
No.
his scent was lost. So I wanted everybody to know it was actually in the back towards the
Yes.
river.
Yes.
And so at this point, there's no new information. I mean, everything we've talked about is the most up to date information.
That's the info, and I did research this morning a little bit more, and what they're saying is that they're nowhere near calling off the search. They're starting again this morning. I believe some of them are searching through the night because they're using night vision and that sort of thing too. So
Hmm.
sounds like there are some people out there at night. What they're recommending is that any volunteers do not come out and search in the evening because the terrain is such that it could be dangerous.
Right.
So the search is ongoing today, and they're asking anyone with any information to contact the Lincoln County Sheriff's Office in Oregon. You can
Hmm.
find that phone number on their website. There are a number of other agencies involved in this search right now, Christy. I know that both Lincoln City Police Department and Newport PD are involved. The FBI is involved.
Mhm.
Search and rescue. There's a number of other agencies, but it sounds like that the primary agency, and it would be the Lincoln County Sheriff's Office. And so that's who people should call if they have any information, even if they
Right.
think that it's not that important. I have seen information given that people think, oh, it's really nothing, and it turns into another tip or something that can help really solve a case. So
Right.
even if you think it's not big,
Yeah, because you
give them a
never
call.
know, one little piece of information that you think is nothing
Right.
may totally change the way this is, may totally change the investigation.
100%. Don't be silent. If you think you know something, even if you've heard something, call. They've received over close to 200 phone tips right now, or tips either via phone or online.
Mhm.
Tips are continuing to come in, and I'm sure they have dedicated people that are researching all of those tips and sending them out to the officers, and they're going out and checking those things out. So definitely, if you think you know something, call.
Right, definitely.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, and I guess, that's, all I had. I just kinda wanted to ask you some questions to give, the public a better idea of exactly
Sure.
what's going on, what we're dealing with, the scent and the terrain and all of that. Because I do really think that the way that riverbank looks
Hmm.
is it especially being a toddler, I feel like it'd be hard for like me, a regular an adult, to get down that terrain without, maybe falling or getting stuck on some of the brush because it's so thick
Right.
on that riverbed that I find it would be very hard for a toddler to be able to walk down there
Hmm.
and not, like maybe fall down, roll down in, which is it's
Correct.
so sad to, you know, this is such a sad thing.
It really is. I mean, and if Dane is in the river, I mean, it could have happened just like you just described. He could have been just moving around through trying to get through the brush and slipped and fell in. I mean, it can
Yeah,
happen just like that.
yeah, it's so sad.
It is.
Um, but for those of you for you guys that maybe just come in or didn't hear it, Scott is covering this on X, so he posts a lot of stuff about it over there. So you can go ahead and follow him for to keep up to date on information. And if I get anything further, I will post it and bring it to you guys and let you guys know what's going on, because it is sad. It's a 2-year-old little boy that's missing. He's been missing now for 5 days. Today's day 5,
Mhm.
and the parents have no clue no clue where their child is. It's very heartbreaking.
It's a tragic case, and like you said, I'll continue to report any new information that I hear on X. You can find me at Snyder, SNYDER 860 on X, and yeah, I mean we're all hoping for the best, obviously,
Right.
for everyone.
Yes. Well, I want to thank you for coming on again and,
Thank you.
sharing your knowledge with us, and we appreciate having you on every time.
Well, thank you. It's always a pleasure to be here. I really appreciate it, and yeah, thanks for having me, Christy.
Well, thank you, and I'll let you go now, but you have a great rest of your day.
All right, thank you, and thank you to everyone in chat today.
Oh, thank you.
You bet.
All right, you guys. That's the most up-to-date information we have at this point. Um, let me hear your thoughts down in the comment section below. I love you guys. Stay strong, stay healthy, stay safe. Keep asking those hard questions. Keep spreading that light, and we will see you next time.